This is the story of how a standard remote job offer turned into federal bank fraud charges. Millions of desperate job seekers log online every morning hoping for a breakthrough. They endure endless rounds of applications, face countless rejections, and finally receive that golden offer letter. The salary fits, the benefits look perfect, and the human resources manager feels entirely genuine. 2 weeks later, the bank freezes their entire life savings and threatens severe legal action. The corporate onboarding process they just completed never actually existed, and the company executives who interviewed them were digital phantoms, operating from another continent. The employment trap targets the exact moment a worker feels most secure. The economic reality of 2026 forces highly qualified professionals into a brutal waiting game. Finding a legitimate remote position requires sifting through thousands of dead-end listings on massive platforms. A graphic designer spots an opening for a hybrid role at a recognizable marketing firm. The posting looks standard, demanding 3 years of experience. They submit their portfolio, expecting another silent rejection. An email arrives 48 hours later from a corporate domain, inviting them to a preliminary screening. The timing feels like a miracle, arriving just as their emergency fund dwindles down to the final rent payment. The victim enters a shadow recruitment process designed to mirror exact corporate protocols perfectly. By 2024, the Better Business Bureau ranked this specific trap as the #1 threat targeting adults aged 18 to 34. The initial screening feels remarkably rigorous. A polite human resources coordinator schedules a formal video call, sending calendar invites with secure links attached. The applicant logs in, wearing business attire, eager to prove their worth. 2 interviewers join the call, displaying standard corporate backgrounds and asking highly technical industry questions. The candidate stumbles through a difficult scenario question and leaves the interview feeling genuinely challenged. This intense friction convinces the victim that the opportunity holds real value, which meant they let their guard down entirely. A second round follows 3 days later, featuring the supposed department director. Over $501 million disappeared into employment traps precisely because scammers mastered this corporate theater. The fake executives complain about budget cuts and discuss company culture with terrifying accuracy. The victim feels incredibly proud when the final approval email lands. Modern criminal networks refuse to rely on simple phone calls anymore. The faces staring back at the applicant during video interviews often belong to real executives, stolen directly from corporate websites. The scammers employ AI-powered deepfake technology to map these stolen identities onto their own movements. If the video frame stutters, the interviewers simply blame a faulty office router. The synthetic voices perfectly mimic regional accents and casual workplace banter. The victim spends 30 minutes discussing marketing strategies with a digital mask projected from a warehouse thousands of miles away. During the year 2025 alone, cybersecurity experts tracked a massive spike in synthetic identity usage during corporate onboarding simulations. The applicant believes they just charmed a senior director, but they actually passed an audition to become a financial mule. Securing the position triggers a flurry of seemingly official administrative tasks. The new hire receives an urgent link to a company portal to complete onboarding documentation before the weekend. The web address looks flawless, directing the user to a secure login screen bearing the exact corporate logo. The deception relies on URL spoofing, replacing a single letter to alter a legitimate domain name. A real company operating at acmecorp.com suddenly becomes acme-corp.com in the welcome email. The result was a completely enclosed digital environment where the victim feels safe submitting sensitive personal details. They upload a scanned driver's license and provide their exact home address. Approximately 40% of all employment fraud incidents reported recently rely heavily on these identical digital staging grounds. The trap requires absolute trust. The most destructive phase of the operation disguises itself as standard tax compliance. The fake portal demands a completed W-4 form and a direct deposit authorization sheet to ensure the new employee receives their first paycheck. The victim eagerly types their 9-digit social security number into the provided fields to avoid any payroll delays. They type in their bank routing number and their date of birth. Handing over this information permanently alters the victim's financial trajectory, though the consequences remain hidden for months. Scammers extract these details to execute synthetic identity fraud, blending the stolen legitimate numbers with fake names to open massive lines of credit. By late 2025, investigators realized these fake job postings function primarily as mass data harvesting operations. They believe they secured their livelihood, but they just handed criminals the keys to their existence. The final onboarding meeting introduces the first actual financial transaction of the ordeal. The fake manager explains the company policy regarding remote workspaces, insisting all employees use strictly approved hardware to maintain data security. The new hire learns they must purchase a specific MacBook Pro and an ergonomic dual monitor setup. The company assures the victim they will never pay out of pocket for these mandatory corporate supplies. An official email arrives explaining the accounting department will provide a dedicated company check to cover the exact cost. The requested items total exactly $3,450, a number carefully calculated to sit just below the immediate fraud alert thresholds of regional banks. The victim feels a rush of relief, assuming a legitimate business would never send a brand new employee thousands of dollars up front. That is exactly the psychological blind spot the criminals exploit. A priority mail envelope arrives at the victim's apartment 2 days later, containing a beautifully printed corporate check. The paper features watermarks, a legitimate bank logo, and the exact authorized signature of the company's actual chief financial officer. The new hire takes the check straight to their local bank branch, depositing the full amount into their personal checking account. Federal banking regulations mandate that financial institutions make deposited funds available to customers within 1 to 2 business days. The victim checks their banking app the next morning and sees their available balance instantly boosted by thousands of dollars. Seeing those numbers on the screen eliminates any lingering doubts. The money physically exists in their accounts, which meant the job and the future they promised must be entirely real. The victim receives an urgent text message pressing them to finalize the equipment order immediately. The company instructions explicitly forbid the new employee from purchasing the electronics at a local retail store. The manager insists the company maintains a strict contract with a specific third-party wholesale vendor who pre-installs all necessary security software. The victim receives a digital invoice from this vendor, requesting immediate payment through peer-to-peer applications like Zelle or an outright wire transfer. A massive $2 billion vanishes annually from the employment industry, and these untraceable transfer methods act as the primary drain. The victim obediently authorizes the transfer, watching the newly deposited funds leave their account to secure their work equipment. They send the confirmation receipt to their manager, who congratulates them and promises the laptops will arrive by Tuesday. The new hire spends the weekend celebrating their exhausting job hunt ending. They did not realize silent alarm bells were ringing inside their bank. The illusion shatters completely, exactly 5 days after the initial check deposit clears the system. The physical check slowly makes its way through the Federal Clearinghouse network, arriving finally at the issuing institution for verification. The authentic company whose routing numbers appeared on the paper instantly rejects the transaction, flagging the document as a sophisticated counterfeit. The bank immediately reverses the initial deposit, ripping the phantom funds entirely out of the victim's checking account without warning. The peer-to-peer transfer the victim sent to the vendor remains permanent, meaning the stolen money actually came directly from their own personal savings. The victim wakes up expecting a package delivery, but instead finds a catastrophic negative balance glaring from their phone screen. A median loss of nearly $2,000 devastates the average victim, but many lose vastly more. The result was pure panic. Desperation kicks in as the victim fires off frantic emails to the hiring committee and the IT support desk. every single message bounces back instantly with an automated notification stating the domain does not exist. The crushing reality of the situation finally settles over the victim as they retrace their digital steps through the onboarding process. The friendly coordinator who talked about her children on Zoom, the serious director, and the approved vendor who took their money were all the exact same person. A lone scammer sitting halfway across the world orchestrated the entire corporate play from a single laptop. Out of the thousands of employment fraud cases recorded throughout 2026, authorities struggled to trace the vast majority of these digital phantoms. The victim realizes the entire company was nothing but a customized hallucination. The second wave of the nightmare begins immediately afterward. The financial institution holding the victim's account refuses to view them as an innocent casualty of a sophisticated international operation. The bank classifies the young professional as a severe liability, an active participant in a fraudulent check-cashing scheme. The fraud department completely freezes all associated accounts, cutting the victim off from their remaining cash and their ability to pay rent. The victim visits their local branch in person, presenting the fake offer letter and chat logs as desperate proof of their innocence. The branch manager explains that depositing a counterfeit instrument violates the terms of service, which meant the bank must terminate their relationship permanently. Institutions reported thousands of these specific account closures in 2025, blacklisting young workers from the mainstream banking system entirely. They thought they landed a career, but instead they earned a permanent stain on their financial record. Criminals continuously adapt their methods, and a terrifying variation called the Reshipping Nightmare dominates the current hiring market. Instead of asking the victim to buy equipment, the fake company actually sends physical high-end electronics directly to the new employee's apartment. The scammers hire the victim as a quality control inspector, instructing them to receive the packages, test the laptops, and mail them to an overseas corporate office. The victim happily performs the work, unaware that the criminals purchased these machines using stolen credit cards belonging to other innocent people. Over 43% of all reported remote work scams involve some variation of this physical product movement. The victim operates effectively as a money mule, laundering stolen funds through physical goods. When federal authorities finally track the stolen merchandise, the trail leads directly to the victim's front door. Seeking justice for these highly coordinated digital thefts almost always ends in bitter frustration for the newly unemployed victim. They file a detailed police report with their local precinct, handing over the fake checks and the transfer receipts. The local detective takes the file, but openly admits their department lacks the cyber division resources to pursue international syndicates. The money traveled through a domestic application, but immediately bounced into an offshore cryptocurrency wallet the moment the transfer cleared. Federal agencies collect these reports through their online complaint centers, filing them away into massive databases tracking global crime trends. During the first half of 2026 alone, the volume of these specific complaints overwhelmed regional cyber task forces completely. The authorities understand exactly how the theft occurred, but nobody possesses the actual capability to cross international borders and retrieve the stolen savings. The missing money represents only a fraction of the total devastation inflicted upon the young professional. A deep sense of shame isolates the victim, convincing them they were foolish for falling into such an elaborate trap. They hide the incident from their family, too embarrassed to explain how their exciting new career was actually a masterclass in psychological manipulation. They sit in their apartment, staring at the exact same job boards they scoured weeks ago, but now every single listing looks like a potential threat. Their stolen social security number floats through dark web marketplaces, requiring them to monitor their identity for the rest of their adult life. By early 2026, mental health professionals treating fraud victims reported severe spikes in anxiety following these specific thefts. The scam thoroughly destroys a person's faith in their own judgment. The massive profitability of the fake employment industry. guarantees the tactics will only grow more aggressive and technically polished. Syndicates now funnel their stolen millions directly back into research, purchasing better artificial intelligence tools and more convincing corporate databases. They scrape professional networking sites daily, targeting workers the exact moment they update their profile status to indicate they need new opportunities. The traditional advice of simply looking for spelling errors in an email no longer protects anyone against these deeply engineered corporate illusions. The applicant must approach every single job offer as a potential hostile action until absolute verification occurs outside the provided digital channels. With over $2 billion draining from the working class annually, the trap remains active and highly effective. Understanding the specific mechanics of the equipment check illusion provides the only real defense. The employment market punishes hope and exploits the desperate need for financial stability. A single bounced check does not just empty a bank account, it dismantles a person's entire digital identity and triggers severe federal banking consequences. The criminals behind these polished corporate facades rely entirely on our basic desire to trust a seemingly professional process. Protecting yourself requires treating every remote offer with extreme caution and demanding independent verification before transferring a single cent. If you found this breakdown of the job market helpful, subscribe to the channel and I will see you in the next investigation.